Today we are going to talk about the biggest theft of museum property in American history. The case we are going to talk about today happened in 1990. The total value of the stolen property reached an astonishing $500 million. Even if it is put into today's view, it is still a super big case, not to mention 34 years ago. At that time, this case shocked the world. The museum where the theft was stolen is called the Isabella Gardner Museum in Boston, USA. It is a private museum opened in 1903. So far, it has displayed more than 7,500 paintings, sculptures, furniture, textiles, silverware, and ceramics. Its collection is quite rich. A total of 13 artworks were stolen in this case, including Rembrandt's Baroque painting Storm on the Sea of Galilee, Rembrandt's Lady and Gentleman in Black, Vermeer's famous work The Concert, Marais in Tortoni, etc. Each piece is a priceless and precious work of art. So, the question is, what happened that day? How did the robbers succeed? Let's go back to March 18, 1990. At 10 a.m. on that day, two robbers drove a car to the side door of the Gardner Museum and stopped. The two robbers were wearing police uniforms and were obviously prepared to pretend to be police officers to enter the museum. The security guard on duty at the museum that day was named Richard Abbas. At about 1 a.m., he completed his patrol and returned to the security room to change shifts with another security guard. At 1:24 a.m., Abbas heard someone ringing the doorbell outside the door. He saw from the surveillance that the two people outside the door were wearing police uniforms. They were obviously police officers. They asked Abbas to open the door. Abbas was a rock band singer who worked as a security guard at the museum at night. But at least he was trained and knew that uninvited people like this should not be allowed to enter. But Abbas was not sure whether this rule applied to the police, and he did not want to anger the police and cause trouble for himself. So he opened the door. After the two policemen came in, they knew that there was a button under the table in the security room. If the button was pressed, the police would know. There was a robbery inside, so the first thing they had to do was to find a way to get Abbas away from the table. So they said to Abbas, "You look familiar. We have an arrest warrant here. Come over and show your ID." Abbas really stood up and left the table after hearing this. As soon as he went over, he was handcuffed behind his back by two robbers. According to Abbas's later recollection, he had realized at that time that something was wrong. These two people might be here to rob, but it was too late. At this time, another security guard returned to the security room after patrolling. The robbers quickly pointed their guns at him and handcuffed him. The security guard asked very aggrievedly why they arrested him. The robbers said, "This is not arresting you. This is robbery. If you want to live, be honest." So, the robbers took the two security guards to the basement, blocked their mouths with tape, and tied their hands and feet. Then they entered the museum to steal. They frantically dismantled various famous paintings on the wall. Because they were too close to the scene, they were discovered by the detector and a loud alarm was immediately sounded. However, the two robbers found them without panic. The alarm was broken with a hammer and the alarm stopped ringing. It turned out that the security design of this museum was flawed. The alarm only informed the security guards inside the museum, but the police outside were unaware. Once something happened, the police could only be notified by the security guards pressing the red button under the table. The actual situation was that the two security guards were tied up in the basement by the robbers, so the alarm was not very effective at all. About an hour later, at 2:28 a.m., the robbers returned to the basement and first confirmed that the two security guards were still there. Then they went to the security room and destroyed all kinds of videotapes captured by the surveillance cameras inside and outside the museum. Some witnesses said that the two robbers drove away in a red rice flag car. I guess the two robbers may not have thought that things would go so smoothly, otherwise they might have driven a bigger car to steal more collections. About 4 hours later, it was already morning, and the other two security guards on the early shift finally came. They found that the door was locked and they couldn't open it no matter what they did. There was no one responding from inside. The police called the police immediately. At 8:30 a.m., the police arrived at the scene and entered the museum. They found 2 security guards with their hands and feet tied in the basement. The police immediately launched an investigation. According to the recollections of the 2 security guards, although the 2 robbers wore gloves, they did not cover their faces. When the police questioned Abbas, he could not remember what the robbers looked like. This made the police very angry and helpless. The police had very few clues in this case and had almost no clues. The existing evidence also did not reveal the motive of the robbers. For example, the most valuable collection of the museum is Titian's famous painting The Rape of Europa, and the robbers did not steal this most valuable painting. They stole the painting in a very rough way, directly cutting it from the frame, unlike professional robbers who stole paintings. However, these evidences or clues were not related enough to support the police to solve the case. The first suspect the police found was Brian McDevitt. He had tried a similar method in the 1980s in a place called Hyde in New York State. He found an internal employee of the Museum of the Collection and used a knife to cut the painting from the frame. Then he put on the uniform of the courier company and prepared to disguise himself as a courier to sneak in and take it out. However, the funny thing was that when he went there, the traffic was too congested. When he arrived at the museum, it was already off work, so the matter was exposed. In the end, he was sentenced to several months for attempted robbery. Coincidentally, McDevitt's residence was only 10 minutes away from the Gardner Museum where the crime occurred. However, McDevitt refused to admit the crime and claimed that he knew nothing. In the end, there was no evidence and he could not be convicted. Another suspect was the security guard Abbas. Some people believed that this was a play he directed and acted in himself. This also explains why the robber knew the location of the red case and found that the alarm sounded, but he did not panic. In addition, Abbas did not remember what the suspect looked like afterwards. However, the police later ruled out this possibility because he looked very painful when describing being tied up in the basement. This description made people feel very real, and it was unlikely that he would tie himself up so old. However, even the FBI, which is full of crime-solving experts, he was also constantly doubting himself. In 2015, the FBI released a 6-minute video clip from the day before the robbery. Although the image was processed to improve clarity, it was still a little blurry. The video showed that Abbas opened the side door while on duty the day before. The thief also entered through this side door. He allowed a man in a short coat with his collar turned up to enter. The two disappeared from the screen for a few minutes until the man came out. FBI agents revealed that in the many interrogations with Abbas over the years, he never said that a man had visited the museum the day before. Obviously, allowing the man to enter the museum was illegal. After the theft that year, the video bag was confiscated. Why was it not until 2015? It is unknown until the video is released. In order to recover these artworks, the Gardner Museum compromised from the beginning. After the case happened, it offered a reward of $5 million, claiming that as long as the well-preserved artworks were recovered, the reward could be obtained. In 2017, the reward was increased to $10 million. The manager of the Gardner Museum said that even the people involved in the case would be eligible for the reward as long as they could return the artworks. Until now, nearly 30 years have passed, and this case is like a mystery. Until now, the FBI has not arrested anyone and has not recovered any artworks. No one knows where the artworks are now, and no one knows who the two robbers are.